Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. That great mountain sect's Daoist in the lead was astonished, junior brother and junior sisters? This general might not know that the disciples of our great mountain sect were split into two groups to Deer County so as to invite the gods over. Luckily, we have succeeded in inviting a devil god over. However, the other group of disciples has all been murdered. The devil god's sculpture and talisman treasures were robbed, as well as their clothes. Officer Linding's expression changed hugely and he cried out, "If those that are summoning the devil now aren't the disciples of your great mountain sect, then who could they be?" That Daoist's eyes lighted up as he heard the faint chanting coming from the city lord's manor and said coldly, "I would also like to know who they are. This is bad. The person summoning the devil has already made a connection with the devil god in the devil realm. Let us hurry over." Linding's eyes twitched irregularly as he hurriedly rushed towards the direction of the city lord's manor while shouting sternly, "Young sect master, quickly give the order to execute those demons in the city lord's manor." In the city lord's manor, Qin Mu felt his consciousness entering deep into another world through this devil god's sculpture, and his consciousness traveled throughout this darkness before stopping suddenly. In front of him was a boundless space and time of darkness. Next, a humongous eye which was filled with scarlet-red flames opened up in the darkness. In front of this eye, he was minute like a speck of dust. On Qin Mu's left, another humongous eye opened up, and after that, another eye opened up above these two eyes. The pupil of the third eye contracted and its gaze slowly moved before landing on his body. "Weakling, you are summoning me, summoning the Juqian Devil King that rules the borderless territory of Juqian." Those three eyes gradually rose into the sky and went further and further away from Qin Mu's consciousness. However, they were still incomparably huge. Only now did Qin Mu notice there was still light beside his body, and he was like a lamp in the darkness. He looked at himself standing on the altar. The altar gave off a white glow and looked incomparably minute in the darkness, looking insignificant. The altar and he on the altar seemed to have come to another world. "You are summoning my strength." A voice resonated out from the center of the three eyes, far and high up. The voice bombarded his consciousness and trembling back and forth, "You are summoning me to your world, to massacre, to battle." Qin Mu said humbly, "O the great Juqian Devil King, I pray for your descent. I shall sacrifice to you thousands of powerful lives, all the divine arts practitioners of Heaven Wave City." The three eyes suddenly burst into flames and an earth-shaking voice resonated out, "As you wish." The sacrificial altar below Qin Mu's feet suddenly lighted up and the rays spread out in all directions. In an instant, the entire Heaven Wave City appeared in the darkness. Qin Mu looked around and his heart pounded. The entire Heaven Wave City was under his eyes and all the people in Heaven Wave City were in his eyes. Every action and what they were wearing were all in his eyes, down to the very last detail. Following that, human figures started to disappear one after another from the city and only the divine arts practitioners were left in the city. Those that had disappeared from the city were martial arts practitioners that had yet reached Six Directions realm and the ordinary people. These people didn't really disappear from Heaven Wave City, and instead, this Juqian Devil King was confirming his sacrifices. Qin Mu hurriedly pointed to the dragon Qilin beside the altar and said, "This dragon Qilin isn't part of the sacrifices offered to the great Juqian Devil King." "Shut up!" An eerie and sinister voice came out from the back of those three eyes. Qin Mu saw another three more huge eyes spinning over behind these three eyes. "You have no rights to command, Juqian Devil King. I'll borrow your consciousness to descend onto this city." Qin Mu suddenly felt his body becoming stiff and was unable to move as an incomparably terrifying strength surged over from another world. Rumble. Violent tremors traveled from the surroundings of the sacrificial altars. Bloodlight soared into the sky, reaching several hundred yards, and as Qin Mu bathed in the bloodlight, he could feel a terrifying strength descending onto this world through his consciousness and surging towards the body of the devil god sculpture. The runes on the surface of the devil god sculpture were like weird eyes frantically absorbing the energy surging over from another world. The surface of the devil god sculpture cracked continuously and the wood chips exploded out in all directions. This devil god sculpture became larger and larger as dense light leaked out from the cracked lines. Flesh could be faintly seen growing in the insides of the devil god sculpture, which was made from wood. In a blink of an eye, the devil god sculpture on the altar had grown dozens of yards tall and was still continuing to grow. Qin Mu only felt his consciousness splitting apart. Not only had the energy of Qian Devil King descended, Qian Devil King's consciousness had also come bombarding over. That was a sinister, terrifying and irritable consciousness. This made Qin Mu's consciousness become insignificant in front of this terrifying consciousness, as if he could be crushed any moment. The nature of this Devil King was extremely violent, and he didn't care whether Qin Mu live or die. He just transferred his consciousness and strength from a space and time far away, pouring them into the devil god sculpture. The devil god sculpture was still expanding and becoming bigger, thus all the wood had already shattered and turned into a body of flesh. Catcher, catcher! There were rolling thunders all around the altar as numerous bolts of lightning struck here and there, forcing Chen Wanyan and the rest to move back continuously. The dragon Qilin and Hulinger were moving back continuously as well. The violent aura of that devil god sculpture forced the dragon Qilin unable to have his footing. Beneath the feet of the devil god sculpture, Qin Mu's body was trembling as a wound opened up at the heart of his brows. Fizzling sparks shot out from the heart of his brows and shone on the devil god sculpture. Within the sparks was the consciousness of the Qian Devil King. His consciousness was so strong that he nearly destroyed Qin Mu's consciousness. Qin Mu's forehead was non-stop bleeding, and there were even smells of fresh blood burning. He couldn't move at all. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and forcefully executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to protect his consciousness. His train of thoughts had already stopped, but luckily for him, the pressure on him lessened considerably when Overlord Body 3 elixir technique started circulating. Suddenly, Qin Mu felt the circulation of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique had added some stuff into his own body. The sounds of slaughter shook the heaven as the spirit weapons bombarded over like clouds, causing him unable to ponder over it. Sounds of tremors rang beside his ear as the devil god sculpture placed down that raised leg, collapsing countless of buildings in the city lord's manor from the vibrations. Before the spirit weapons could even reach close, they were all blown up into pieces. Devil withdraw command. Several Taoists rushed in from outside, and when the Daoist in lead saw this sight, his eyes couldn't help opening wide from anger. The dozen and more Taoists hurriedly patted the rune pouches on their waists, causing countless of yellow joss paper to fly out from the rune pouch. Written on these yellow joss papers were weird runes that were different from Ghost Transferring God Dispatching Runes command. The countless of yellow joss paper linked with each other and formed a huge yellow screen. The countless of runes on the yellow joss papers could actually link one another from head to tail, forming an incomparably huge and complicated character. The Secret Arts of Great Mountain Sect, Devil Withdraw Command. About a dozen of Taoists of Great Mountain Sect chanted in chorus and pushed their vital qi to activate this complicated character on the yellow screen. Devil Withdraw Command lighted up and shone towards Qian Devil King. Just as Devil Withdraw Command shone onto the body of Qian Devil King, the eyes of Qian Devil King opened up one by one and a bolt of lightning shot out from his gaze, tearing Devil Withdraw Command into pieces. About a dozen of Taoists under Devil Withdraw Command was also shone by his gaze, and they turned into ashes. However, as Devil Withdraw Command shone onto Qian Devil King's body, Qin Mu instantly felt the heart of his brows turning light suddenly and as if relieved of a heavy load. He regained control of his body and hurriedly retreated. There were still some puzzles in his heart. This devil god that he had summoned seemed to be slightly different. He didn't listen to him at all. He was extremely cruel and didn't care whether he lived or died at all. This devil god that he had summoned out was probably no ordinary devil god. Let us retreat. Qin Mu rapidly came to the others and shouted, "Big dragon, show your true form and bring us out of the city." The dragon Qilin gave a roar and heat waves instantly swept out, blowing Yu Qinghong and Yun Qiu away. Chen Wanyan and the wolf slave lost their footing and moved back a few steps, while Sai Yinxiang's body just swayed and didn't move back at all. The dragon Qilin's body expanded and grew larger, with true fire blazing around his body. He instantly turned into a huge creature that was over 400 feet long. His height was even taller than the city tower, and as his body moved, the air around him exploded continuously from being compressed. Qin Mu flew and came to Yu Qinghong and Yun Qiu's side in a flash to grab the both of them. With his fleeting footsteps, he came to the Dragon Qili's side and jumped up on the Dragon Qili's back. Chen Wanyan and Sai Yunxiang also jumped up, and Qin Mu shouted, "Run! Run as fast as possible!" Fire clouds grew under the feet of the Dragon Qili and rose into the sky. At this moment, they heard Juqian Devil King's voice coming from their back, vibrating the air. "Run? Where to? Finally, someone has summoned me. I had not imparted out the spells of Juqian in vain. I'll construct a sacrificial altar here and build a passage to summon my true body, to summon the people of my Juqian. Ha ha ha, you will all be the skeletons on my sacrificial altar." His huge hand came grabbing over, and the air in the surrounding was almost solidified, freezing the Dragon Qili which was running in the air. The Dragon Qili pushed his magic power and the flame clouds raged, yet he was unable to move at all. As this Juqian Devil King was about to grab hold of them, a dragon roar suddenly sounded out. A middle-aged man rode a flood dragon and pounced over viciously. With its body coiled around the Juqian Devil King, the flood dragon spew out lightning and fire at the face of Juqian Devil King. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man stood on the head of the flood dragon, stabbing the head of Juqian Devil King with the sword lights flashing in his hand. Qin Mu and the rest were free from the constraints, and the Dragon Qili immediately rose into the sky, rushing out of the city. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. The Dragon King of Dragon Rider sect is here. At this moment, a miserable cry sounded out. The Cult Master level Flood Dragon was actually pulled apart forcefully by the Juqian Devil King, whose punch made both the Flood Dragon and the Dragon King of Dragon Rider sect spat blood and fell back. Rah! The four faces of Juqian Devil King opened their mouths and shouted with all their might. The earth-shaking sound waves surged forth, causing countless of people to bleed from all their orifices. The Dragon Qili's body also swayed from the roars, and suddenly all 12 eyes of Juqian Devil King lighted up brightly. With bolts of lightning interweaving each other, they swept over from all directions, slicing through countless of experts in Heaven Wave City that were pouncing over. The Dragon Qili was also hit in his butt and snarled in pain, falling from the sky. Luckily for him, his skin was thick, thus he wasn't killed by Juqian Devil King's gaze. The Dragon Qili landed in the city and his body shrank as he stumbled. Qin Mu and the rest hurriedly came down from his back, only to see Juqian Devil King sweeping all the experts in the city lord's manor while chuckling. "I was the one who had imparted ghost transferring god dispatching runes command. You weaklings wouldn't have thought of it, am I right? I will use your corpses to construct a huge sacrificial altar to let my true body to descend. The people of my Juqian shall descend into this world." Yu Qinghong was dazed and muttered, "Academician, what kind of devil have you summoned?" Qin Mu was also a little dumbstruck. "I don't know either. Let us leave quickly, Long Jiaonan is coming over." They quickly brought the Dragon Qili to head out. The Dragon Qili had suffered an injury, thus his legs were inconvenient. Hu Linga jumped onto Qin Mu's back and immediately cast a spell to summon a tornado, sweeping this Dragon Qili into the whirlwind and brought him along. Meanwhile, behind them, Heaven Wave City, which was constructed on the mountain range beside the river, was collapsing. As the huge Devil King fought numerous strong practitioners in the city, he actually had the free time to use the flesh and bones of the people he killed to build his sacrificial altar. Bloody bones and skulls continuously flew through the air and landed under his feet, building a layer very quickly. His true body was still located in that so-called Juqian, and only his magic power and consciousness had descended, yet the strength of his abilities had already surpassed strong practitioners of the Cult Master level. In the city, the Dragon King of Dragon Rider sect was not the only expert of the Cult Master level. There were also other stronger practitioners of the Life and Death realm as well as the Divine Bridge realm. However, even when they attacked all together, they were helpless against Juqian Devil King and got injured one after another. As for the army stationed in the city, the thousands of divine arts practitioners were all injured in Juqian Devil King's roars, and countless of them were killed by the 12 gazes of Juqian Devil King. The city was in a piece of chaos, and countless soldiers were escaping for their lives in undisciplined crowds, and some even jumped straight into the river. However, they were all smashed into pieces on the mountain cliff by the towering huge waves of surging river. The soldiers in the city were usually disciples from each and every sect and lacked the discipline they had in the military. When they met something terrifying like this, they just broke down instantly and had no morale at all. It was absolutely impossible for their armed forces to cooperate and trap Qin Devil King using formations. When Qin Mu followed Chancellor Ba Shan to the area beyond the Great Wall for experience, the combined strength of 800 strong practitioners of the prairie could wear down Chancellor Ba Shan's divine arts, heavenly spirit's escarpment, forcing him to retreat again and again. Chancellor Ba Shan was a strong practitioner of the cult master level and was even forced to retreat. With thousands of divine arts practitioners and martial arts practitioners in Heaven Wave City, if they cooperated with each other, they would probably be able to contend with Qin Devil King for a short period of time. However, each and every sect was like a sheet of loose sand, unable to be gathered together. Escaping for their lives were more important. Qin Mu looked back and saw Long Jiaonan chasing desperately. However, it didn't look like he was chasing after them. Oh right, Long Jiaonan is also running for his life. Qin Mu came to a realization. Boom! Terrifying vibrations burst forth from the clash of the strong practitioners. Buildings crumbled and disintegrated in midair while Qin Mu and the rest were lifted into the air by the terrifying vibrations. Countless of people flailed their limbs and flew off in all directions. Boom, boom. When they were still in midair, another few terrifying vibrations came traveling over and Qin Mu vomited blood continuously. He hurriedly grabbed Hu Linga down from his backpack and embraced her tightly so that Hu Linga wouldn't be vibrated to death. When the fourth vibration rushed over, Qin Mu grunted and executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. His body and soul immediately became incomparably durable, but he was still blown away. Thud! Qin Mu crashed into the ground and tumbled several times before coming to a stop. He crashed into a forest and the gale whooshed past the top of the forest, slicing countless crowns of the trees off. That was the aftermath of the divine arts from the strong practitioners of Heaven Wave City. Blood flowed out from the corner of Qin Mu's mouth and his eyes stared wide open as he felt a suffocation in his chest. After a moment, he suddenly gasped for huge breaths and he heard a pop sound coming from his chest. His chest should be damaged. He panted heavily and took Hu Linga out from his chest. Hu Linga was also injured quite badly and had fainted. Qin Mu hurriedly took out a jade bottle from his Taotia sack. Pinching her mouth open, he poured a few drops of dragon saliva into his mouth. After a moment, Hu Linga gradually woke up and was in a daze. She then said with a sobbing tone, "I have lost Big Dragon." The Dragon Chiline had inconvenience in walking, thus Hu Linga had summoned a tornado with her spells and let this Dragon Chiline sit on the tornado, allowing him to float in midair. The few vibrations that had traveled over earlier destroyed her spells and blew the Dragon Chiline far away as well. Qin Mu consoled her, "It's okay, Big Dragon was merely hurt on the butt and he will heal himself, although I'm afraid he might not be able to reach the wound to lick it. Furthermore, I have also lost Chen Wanyun and the rest. Big Dragon is very valuable." Hu Linga sobbed, "Chen Wanyun and the rest are worthless." Qin Mu got up and circulated his vital qi, expelling the extravasated blood from his chest. He then picked her up and said, "Let's go find them." Just as he said that, his body became stiff. Sounds of trees collapsing came from the depths of the forest and a huge snake gradually slithered out from the forest, pushing the trees down from both sides. That huge snake was the one that destroyed the ship that Qin Mu and Wei Yong took when they were heading to the capital city. The huge creature that Long Jiaonan raised. Keek, keek. Violent coughs came from the head of the snake. Qin Mu raised his head and saw a pretty man in disheveled clothes sitting on the flat head of the snake coughing and spitting blood. Thousands of holes were on his flowery gown and even the rogue and powder on his face were smeared, looking battered and exhausted. "You destroyed Heaven Wave City, destroyed my Dragon Rider sect." Long Jiaonan stood up shakily from the head of the huge snake, seemingly crying yet not crying. Her gaze landed on Qin Mu's body and Qin Mu shivered with fear as he steadily moved back step by step. Long Jiaonan was an expert and had faced off with the bow and arrow cavalry as well as the sword guards outside the capital city. Even they didn't manage to hold him back and let him escape unscathed. "Who exactly are you?" The huge flowery crowned snake raised its head up and looked down at Qin Mu. Long Jianan screeched, "Did Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor send you?" Qin Mu didn't say a word and moved back to the side of a huge tree. Suddenly his body disappeared in a flash as he hid himself behind the tree. Long Jianan shrieked and stretched his hand forward to grab. His vital qi transformed into a huge hand and crushed the huge tree into pieces. However, there was no trace of Qin Mu behind the huge tree. Long Jianan turned frantic and raised his hands forwards. The ground trembled continuously as sharp rock spikes pierced out from the ground. In the radius of dozens of yards, there were these kinds of rock spikes everywhere, turning the area into a rock forest. Run? You can't run. That huge snake slithered its body and crushed all the rock spikes as it moved forward. Meanwhile, Long Jianan, who was on the snake's head, seemed to be injured as his body squirmed on the head of the snake as if he was a human snake. After squirming for some time, his head suddenly split open and then his face. Another head popped out. He continued squirming like a snake and not long after, he shed a human skin and Long Jianan stood naked. He fetched a set of new clothes and slowly wore it while looking around and chuckling, "I know you haven't left far away and are still lying low around here, I can feel your gaze. You're admiring my body." About 300 yards away from him, Qin Mu was squatting in the crown of a huge tree and fixed his gaze on the body of Long Jianan, who had gone through a transformation. Dragon Rider Sect sure has peculiar techniques to actually be able to shed his own skin and change into a new body. However, didn't they say Long Jianan was the son of Dragon Rider Sect's Dragon King? How come he's a woman with a plump chest? In the instant he hid his body behind the tree, he immediately raised his clothes up and teleported away, avoiding Long Jianan's sure-kill strike. However, his cultivation wasn't high, thus he couldn't teleport far away. He could only teleport up to 600 yards and couldn't leave this forest. What made him the most astonished was this technique that Long Jianan cultivated. Long Jianan had injuries on his body, yet after he had shed his skin, there was actually no injuries at all. Furthermore, the Long Jianan that had crawled out was naked like a baby. Only now did Qin Mu realize that his body was different from his own and looked like a woman with an alluring body. He trained his chest much firmer than mine. I won't be able to train to this step. Qin Mu exclaimed secretly, "Is he a male or a female? Or could it be, she's a female but the Dragon King wished for a boy, therefore, he had given her the name Jianan, which meant a delicate boy. The Dragon King had most probably raised her as a boy, resulting in her such a queer appearance." His gaze stayed on Long Jianan's body without blinking. If he blinked at this moment, the closing and opening of the eyes would reveal his position and it would be very easy for Long Jianan to get his location. Long Jianan had such overbearing and powerful divine arts, therefore, he was absolutely not his or her opponent. Furthermore, the teleportation clothing could only teleport him 3 to 4 times before his cultivation would be exhausted, making it difficult for him to escape Long Jianan's chase. He also couldn't just keep staring at Long Jianan. For experts like Long Jianan, her senses were extremely sharp and could most probably follow his gaze to find his location. Long Jianan was still slowly wearing her clothes with her back facing Qin Mu. Suddenly fine goosebumps appeared on the skin of her neck as she chuckled, "You're staring at my neck. Does my neck look nice?" Qin Mu's pupils contracted as the area of goosebumps on Long Jianan's neck gradually shrank. She had already confirmed Qin Mu's exact location. Qin Mu raised his clothes and an explosion sounded out beside his ear. His figure vanished in the divine art explosion. Long Jianan's shirt was half-buttoned and she quickly retracted her palm back. The huge snake carried her and slithered at its fastest speed, yet they didn't find any traces of Qin Mu. She suddenly raised her head and saw a person sprint frantically in the sky as he stepped on the air. "You can't run." The huge snakes under her feet spewed out a demon gas and rose into the air, chasing after Qin Mu. In mid-air, the two of them saw the sight in Heaven Wave City and was dumbstruck. They saw the city constructed on the mountain had already been completely demolished, and in its place, there was a sacrificial altar formed from blood and bones. Duqian Devil King stood on the sacrificial altar and was fighting 2 people. One of them was the Dragon King of Dragon Rider Sect, who was with his Flood Dragon, while the other people was a cult master level existence at the Divine Bridge realm. These two people were in great danger and could be killed by Qin Devil King anytime. The devil language coming out from Qin Devil King's mouth was much more profound than the devil language Qin Mu used to summon him. Above Heaven Wave City, the sky was spiraling and warping. Suddenly, thunder rumbled and lightning struck as the sky got ripped open and faintly showed a space of darkness. In that dark space, there seemed to be something moving, and suddenly, a bogeyman with 2 heads and 2 eyes flew out from the vortex that was spinning crazily. The bogeyman stopped in the air and gave 2 shouts towards the vortex. Buzz! Numerous black spots spew out from the vortex and covered the entire sky in a piece of black as they rushed towards Heaven Wave City. Those were the heavenly devils of Qin. 10 of thousands of heavenly devils were pouring in from Qin, and the heavenly devils were killing one another. Their corpses fell from the sky like rain and accumulated on the sacrificial altar, causing the sacrificial altar in Heaven Wave City to grow even larger. Blood rain started to fall from the sky. There were also some heavenly devils that had higher positions holding scepters as they descended from the sky. They landed on the sacrificial altar in Heaven Wave City and chanted an ancient and abstruse devil language as they surrounded the sacrificial altar. Countless magnificent runes instantly appeared in the sky above the sacrificial altar, which was incomparably bright. I might have created a disaster even greater than paralyzing the entire Imperial College, Qin Mu thought to himself as the corner of his eyes twitched. Part 1 end here.